In this video, we're going to be going over one of the most common questions in algebra or math for that part, and that is what are variables? I've had numerous students come up to me and say that they loved math. It was their favorite subject until they got to that point where they started talking about letters. We're not going to be talking about them as letters. We're going to be referring to them now as variables. We'll see why in a second. But that's an extremely common question. So if you've asked yourself that, you've asked your instructor that, you're definitely not alone. Okay? And there's actually a really good answer to this. I think a lot of times people aren't told the answer. They're just said to kind of accept the fact that variables are variables, letters are variables, whatever it might be. But there's a real reason that we start using these letters. Okay? And the reason for that is that we don't know everything. There's a lot of things in life that we just do not know. And we need to have a way to represent those. So we could have come up with some fancy new terminology. We could have maybe said that a smiley face is representative of numbers. We could have come up with some weird squiggly symbol or something like that. And so if there were two values we didn't know, we could have said smiley face plus squiggly equals this other squiggly thing that kind of looks like a tree or something like that. But that'd be bizarre, right? We would be making up these new things. We'd be making it so much more complex than it needs to be. So the nice simple answer to why we need variables is that we need to have a way to represent values in things in everyday life. It could be the area of your room or how much money you're going to make next month, and how to represent that thing we don't know yet using some sort of value. In this case, the way we're going to represent that is a variable. And the key part of variable is the word, or the root there, of vary. Okay? And that's because this value can actually vary. It could be just about anything. We were plugging some kind of number into a variable of x or y or z or whatever it might be. And this right here could be equal to 2. It could be equal to 3. It could be equal to 100 or 1,000 or a million. And it could be different based upon any sort of situation that it's in. You might have one equation, one example where x is equal to 2, and a completely different example where x is equal to a million. And that's okay. Don't get in your head that every single time x is always equal to some value. It's always equal to 2. That's not the case. Okay? It could change based upon the problem. It should change. It will change based upon the problem. Okay? Think of it kind of like if you have area equals what we say length times width. Okay? We could have written that out. Let's backtrack for a second here. Let's say that we didn't have variables, and we had to write that out as area equals length. We had to write the whole word out. Length times width. Well, that's kind of a pain, right? We have to write each word out. We have to write the whole word area, the whole word length, the whole word width. And those are three different quantities there that we don't know at this moment in time. We don't know what the area is, we don't know what the length is or the width, and it could be very different depending upon what we're looking at. If I'm looking at my living room or my guest bedroom or my bedroom or the kitchen. All those areas are going to be different. All those lengths are going to be different. All those widths are going to be different. They're going to vary based upon the room. So we need a formula here, and we'd have ways to represent those different length, width, and area using something. And what's that something we're going to use is that is going to be a variable. So for area, we'll use an A, which makes sense, right? That's better than a squiggly or a smiley face. Let's use something there that makes sense. A for area, L for length, and W for width. That makes a lot more sense. I think it's a simplified way of doing this versus, again, making up some completely new terminology or symbols for this system. Okay? And again, think of each one of these. We could have different areas. We could have a situation where the area is 10, and maybe then that's equal. In this case, the length is 5 and the width is 2. That could be an example there. Okay? That width was 2. That's why we put it down there. The length was 5, and the area is 10, and that works out. Okay? You could think of each one of these variables as kind of like a box that you might have in your house, and you could put all sorts of different things in that box. You could put the number 2 in, you could put the number 10 in, the number 100 in, because it varies. Any of those numbers could be put into that variable. That variable could represent any of those numbers. And like I said, this is a very important concept in math. It's a very important concept in algebra because we base a lot of things off of this. We need to understand these variables, and we don't want to be scared of them. One of the worst things we can do is look at these and find it to be daunting and say, all of a sudden they're throwing letters at me. I just don't get this. I can't figure this out. And I think if we can look at it and say there's a reason for this, and it's something we might actually do in our everyday lives, we might be walking around and see certain values that we don't know, and we may not assign a variable in our head, but we're actually doing something like that. We're figuring things out. We're working backwards, and now we're just kind of putting a system in place to do exactly something that we might just do in our own minds. Okay, and that's what a variable is. It's just a simplified way of representing something that we don't know. And like I said, this is a very important concept. Hopefully, this was helpful in figuring out why we actually use these variables, these letters. Let's call them variables from now on. Hopefully, you found the variable. Hopefully, you found the video useful.